Welcome to biology class. How are you all doing today? Hope you are all fine. Yeah, we're having biology right now, and the last topic we had was internal structure of a mammal. Internal structure of a mammal. That was the last topic we had, and we talked about the three major parts. We talked about three major parts in mammals, which are the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity, and the pelvic cavity. So we talked about different regions, different organs composed of each of the parts. All right. So we talked about the excretory organ, the reproductive organ, and the digestive organ. So the reproductive organ, we talked about the male and the female reproductive organs. We talked about different um, organs. Okay, so today we are moving to a new topic called nutrition. A new topic called nutrition. So if you can hear my voice, you can hear me clearly, please thumbs up. If you can hear me clearly, thumbs up. If you can hear me clearly, thank you, Abdul Wahab. Thank you. Okay, so that is a confirmation that you can all hear me. All right, so today we are moving to nutrition. So when we talk about nutrition, what comes to your mind when you hear the word nutrition? Of course, from the word nutrients. So nutrition, how do we grow as human being? What makes us grow? What are the things, what are the processes that occur in us that makes us grow well? All right. So that is what we want to look into today. Not only mammals. Don't forget, when we started this UTME class, we started with living organisms. All right. So, and we talked about different living organisms, including plants, right? We talked about plants and animals making up the living organisms. All right. So today we are moving to nutrition. Daniel, what is the matter? I can see this energy. Don't worry, we just started, so we've not gone far. So today we are moving to nutrition. And what is the meaning of nutrition? What comes to your mind? Okay, so nutrition is defined as the process by which living organisms obtain and utilize food for energy growth and maintenance of life. So the process whereby you take food, you eat food, you drink water for you to grow, for you to sustain yourself, for you to maintain yourself, that is what we call nutrition. So it is every living organism that experience that exhibit nutrition. All right. So even the plants, they also have what they feed on. So that is what we are doing today. We want to see how the plants feed, how the plants get their nutrients, how the plants survive, how human beings survive, or let me say animals survive. So that is what we are doing today. Nutrition. Nutrition is the process by which you obtain food, the process by which you obtain food and you utilize the food that you have obtained for growth and maintenance of life. That is the simple definition of nutrition. All right, so we are moving to the modes of nutrition. I believe you've gotten the definition of nutrition. All right, so please, I would like you to pay attention and cooperate with me. Don't forget, this is biology. We have a lot of things to cover, and then time will not permit us to give you notes. All right, so then I'm going to try my possible best to explain in details. Okay, so try as much as possible to jot down everything. All right, so like I explained earlier, nutrition is the process whereby you obtain food and you utilize that food that you have obtained to, to provide, like, to supply energy, to give you energy. All right, to give you energy to make you grow and make you maintain life. it is not only human being that experience nutrition, even plants do. So every living organisms experience nutrition. All right, don't forget it's one of the characteristics of living things. Okay, so we are moving to modes of nutrition. So we want to move to modes of nutrition, as we have talked about the definition of nutrition, and I believe you have grasped what is meant by nutrition. I'm going to ask questions after the class. We are going to solve past questions after the class, and that is why I said please pay total attention, because everybody will be partaking in the question. Yes, I'll be asking you questions, sending past questions here. You'll be giving me answers using the chat box. So I want you to prepare yourself and pay total attention, because this class is going to be very interesting. All right. So modes of nutrition. Modes of nutrition. What are the modes of nutrition? What do we mean by modes of nutrition? So there are two different major nutrition, two different major types of nutrition, or let me say modes of nutrition. All right, the first is autotrophic nutrition. You are welcome to class, Juliet. You're a little bit late. Okay, so the first mode of nutrition is autotrophic nutrition, and the second is heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition. I know this is not new to you as UTME students. Okay, so autotrophic nutrition. What do we mean by autotrophic nutrition? This is, don't forget, we are still on living organism, and both the plants and animals experience characteristics of living things, because plants and animals are living things. Okay, so now coming to autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is the type of nutrition is the process by which green plants, they manufacture their own food. So I'm not going to use the word green plants here. I'm going to use organism, because plants are also organisms. Don't forget, the first class we had, we explained all of that. Okay, so autotrophic nutrition is the process by which organisms manufacture their own food through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. So it's the process by which organisms manufacture their own food. Organisms manufacture their own food. Okay. They manufacture their own food through photosynthesis, or chemosynthesis. We are going to be explaining all of those terms. Okay, so we are going to be explaining all of those terms. So like I said earlier, pay total attention, because the class is going to be very interesting. All right, so autotrophic nutrition is the process by which organisms manufacture their own food through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. However, the organisms I mean here could be green plants, it could be algae, it could be green plants, it could be some bacteria. Okay, it could be some bacteria. All right, so what the first thing that should come to your mind is that organisms that can manufacture their own food by themselves through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis, the first thing that should come to your mind is plants, because it is plants that can manufacture their own food through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. All right, so any organism that can manufacture their food through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis is green plant, or probably some bacteria that has the functions of plants. Okay, so that is what we call heterotrophic nutrition. So the second is the first is autotrophic nutrition. They are the ones that can manufacture their own food by themselves, all right, through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. All right, so number 2 is the heterotrophic nutrition. So the heterotrophic nutrition, they cannot manufacture their own food by themselves. All right, so they are organisms that depend on other organisms for food. So indirectly, we are saying that heterotrophic nutrition depends on heterotrophic organisms depend on autotrophic organisms for their own food. So if autotrophic nutrition can manufacture their own food by themselves, then heterotrophic organisms, they are dependent on autotrophic um, organisms. All right, because they cannot manufacture their own food by themselves. So that is the major difference. That is the difference between autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. These can manufacture their own food by themselves, while heterotrophic nutrition, they are dependent on autotrophic organisms. So the heterotrophic nutrition is type of nutrition, or is the process by which organisms depend on other organisms for their own food. Okay, so example of all this is we have the fungi, also most bacteria, even animals. Animals, you see some animals eating plants. So the process by which an organism or an animal is feeding on plants, that process, that organism is an heterotrophic organism because it cannot manufacture its own food. So it has to depend on the green plant for food. So that is what we call heterotrophic nutrition. So if you are with me and you are enjoying the class, thumbs up. Let me know that you are with me. Okay, thumbs up if you can hear me clearly and you are getting the explanation. All right, thank you very much, Abdul Wahab. Okay, so we move to the next. Thank you, Victoria. All right, so the next subtopic is the examples. We need to check the examples of different organisms. Okay, so we need to check the examples of different organisms that feed on that are autotrophic and the ones that are heterotrophic. Okay, so we have some flowering plants that are autotrophic, and um we have some non-flowering plants that are autotrophic. We also have some flowering and non-flowering plants that are heterotrophic. So that is what we want to look into now. So we have autotrophic nutrition, and we have heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, so we have some flowering plants that belongs to this category. We have some flowering plants and we have some non-flowering plants. Okay, so moving to the examples of flowering plants under this category. So the flowering plants, number one, we can say hibiscus flower. I know we are familiar with hibiscus flower. I'm going to be showing us the picture or the diagram of an hibiscus flower. Okay, so hibiscus flower is a flowering plant, and it is an autotrophic organism. It is an autotrophic organism because it can manufacture its own food. It can manufacture its own food. Okay, so this is hibiscus flower. I hope we can see the hibiscus plant. We're all familiar with this plant. All right. So this is a flowering plant that belongs to autotrophic nutrition. You can see it is green plant, so it can manufacture its own food by itself. So this hibiscus flower is an example of an autotrophic nutrition. Okay, so I'm going to be showing us another plant, another flowering plant. You can see the flower, that's why we call it flowering plants. Okay, so we also have the mango plants, the mango tree. We also have the mango tree. We also have the mango tree. Then we have the rose flower. We have the rose plants. We have the rose plants. I'm going to be showing us rose plants too. This is the rose plant here. Okay. I know we might have seen this too. Might have seen these plants before now. So this is the rose plant. You can see it is green just like it has flower. So that's why we call it flowering plant. All right. So this is also a flowering plant that belongs to autotrophic nutrition. So we also have the sunflower. We also have the sunflower. The sunflower is also an example of an autotrophic nutrition. It's an example of an autotrophic nutrition. This is a sunflower here. So this flower, this plant is also an example of autotrophic nutrition because they can manufacture their own food by themselves. Okay, so we move to the non-flowering plants. I've shown us the flowering plants, examples of flowering plants that belongs to autotrophic nutrition. So we are moving to the non-flowering plants that also belong to autotrophic nutrition. That is, they can manufacture their own food by themselves. So the first non-flowering plant I'm going to be showing us is we have the green algae. The green algae. We have the green algae. It is an example. This is an example of a non-flowering plant. Let me show us the conifer first. This is the conifer. We call it conifer. So it is a non-flowering plant. I know we are familiar with these plants. Some call it Christmas tree, right? So this is an example of a coniferous tree. It is a non-flowering plant. It is a non-flowering plant, and it also manufacture its own food by itself. As you can see, it's a green plant, so it can manufacture its food by itself. All right, so we also have some other examples that I'm going to be showing us here. We have what we call the ferns. We have what we call the ferns. We have what we call the ferns. We have the green algae. We have the green algae. Okay, so these are the examples of plants, non-flowering plants. Non-flowering plants. Okay, so we move to the heterotrophic nutrition. We move to heterotrophic nutrition. Also, we have flowering plants that belong to heterotrophic nutrition. And we also have the non-flowering plants that belongs to this category. That belongs to this category. Okay. So we'll be moving to the heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition, we have what we call Venus flytrap. Venus flytrap. Venus flytrap. What do we mean by Venus flytrap? It is also a flowering plant, but then it is an heterotrophic nutrition. I'm going to be presenting it to us now. It is an heterotrophic nutrition. As you can see on the bird, it is an heterotrophic nutrition. So you can see it captures an insect. So like I explained earlier, heterotrophic nutrition cannot manufacture their own food by themselves. All right, so they need to depend on organisms. They need to depend on other organisms for them to survive, for them to be able to maintain life. So that is heterotrophic nutrition. And for non-flowering plants, we have the fungi like the mushrooms. They belong to the heterotrophic nutrition because they cannot manufacture their own food by themselves. So you can see this plant trying to capture this insect. So it is also referred to insectivorous plant because they try to capture insect for them to feed. All right, so we move to types of heterotrophic nutrition. Types of heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, so what do we mean by heterotrophic nutrition? Types of heterotrophic nutrition. Number one, we have what we call Holozoic. We have what we call Holozoic. What do we mean by Holozoic? What do we mean by Holozoic? So under the heterotrophic nutrition, there are different types. There are different types of organisms. There are different types of nutrition. And the first is Holozoic nutrition. Okay, the first is Holozoic nutrition. So what do we mean by Holozoic nutrition? Number one, it's it is the type of nutrition carried out by human being, by man, by sheep. Okay, by man, by sheep. That is Holozoic nutrition. That is Holozoic nutrition. All right. So and it also has what we call, okay, so that is Holozoic nutrition. The number two is the saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition. What do we mean by saprophytic nutrition? These are the type of nutrition in which the organisms feed on dead, decaying organisms. They feed on dead, decaying organisms. All right, they feed on dead, decaying organisms. Okay, so they feed on dead, decaying organisms. An example are the mushroom. The mushroom. Those are the examples. The mushroom are the examples. All right, the mushroom are the examples. So we also have what we call the parasitic nutrition. The parasitic nutrition. All right, the parasitic nutrition. What do? They also depend on other organisms. They depend on other organisms. They depend on other organisms. So that is what um, parasitic organisms do. That is what parasitic organisms do. So we move to the carnivorous plants. We move to the carnivorous plants. What do we mean by the carnivorous plants? The carnivorous plants are the plants that they trap and digest insects, just like the insect I showed you, just like the Venus trap I showed you earlier. I showed you the Venus trap, and I'm going to show you again. Okay, so the Venus trap, they try to trap insects for them to feed. They trap insects for them to feed well. They trap insects for them to feed well. So that is the carnivorous plants, carnivorous insects. All right. So we have talked about the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition. Also the types of the heterotrophic nutrition. So now we are moving to what we call the plant nutrition. We are moving to the plant nutrition. So if you have any question, please make use of the chat box. If you have any question, make use of the chat box. All right. So we move to plant nutrition. We move to plant nutrition. And what do we mean by plant nutrition? What are the plant nutrition? Number one, plant nutrition, like I explained earlier about plants. Okay, so we have what we call photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Okay, so we want to look into what plant nutrition is all about. What plant nutrition is all about. Okay, so when we talk about the plant nutrition, as you can see on the board, we have different features. Okay, so plant nutrition, we have the photosynthesis and the chemosynthesis. We have the photosynthesis and the chemosynthesis. Okay, so photosynthesis, chemosynthesis, and macro elements. Those are the major types of plant nutrition that we have. The photosynthesis, the chemosynthesis, and the macro elements. Okay, so looking at this thing that you see on the board, before we move to the dark reaction, the light reaction, we want to look into what we call photosynthesis. What do we mean by photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process whereby the plant can manufacture its own food by itself. Okay, so the plant can manufacture its own food by itself. All right, so chemosynthesis is the opposite. They can only manufacture their own food and convert it to chemical energy, but then they don't need sunlight. So it is in the absence of sunlight that the chemosynthesis works. All right, so we want to look into the dark reaction, the light reaction in photosynthesis. So when the plant is photosynthesizing, what happens? What happens? What are the reactions in photosynthesis? Okay, so this is a picture on the bird showing us the light reaction and the dark reaction. The light reaction and the dark reaction. All right, so like I said earlier, photosynthesis is the process whereby green plants synthesize and manufacture their own food by themselves. So they try to convert the light energy into chemical energy. Okay, so when they convert the light energy into chemical energy, that's what we call the light reaction and the dark reaction. So during the light reaction, they they manufacture their own food. They make use of the sunlight. You can see the picture, you can see this light. Okay, so this is the sunlight. So when a green plant, when during the day there is light. Okay, during the day there is light. So the plants manufacture and make use of this light. So and where this thing occurs in plants is the chloroplast. The chloroplast. So this action takes place inside the chloroplast, not just the chloroplast, the thylakoid membrane. Thylakoid membrane. Okay. So looking at this labeling, you can see number one here. Number one is the thylakoid. So this is telling you that this is the site where the light comes to directly. All right, so this is the thylakoid membrane inside the chloroplast. All right, so any question can come to you that where does the light reaction occurs? So it occurs inside the thylakoid membrane in the chloroplast. So that is where we have the light reaction. So when the sunlight comes directly to this thylakoid membrane, what does it do? It tries to break down the water molecules. This is the water molecules. It breaks it down to oxygen. Okay, so it breaks it down to oxygen. As you can see the oxygen here. So there is something we call photosynthesis equation, because during photosynthesis there is carbon dioxide. Don't forget, plants breathing carbon dioxide. Okay, so the carbon dioxide and the water molecules come together, just like you see it here. You can see the water, H2O. All right, so the carbon dioxide and the water comes together, okay, to form what we call glucose. Sorry, the space there is not okay. Okay, I think it's the space. So let's use this up here. We have CO2 plus H2O. Let me try and clean what is there. So we have CO2 plus H2O, which is the water molecule, H2O. So it gives glucose, C6H12O6, plus oxygen. Oxygen is given off. So you can see this oxygen. All this occurs at the light reaction, during the light reaction. So the oxygen is given off from the water molecule because it breaks down the water molecule. So it gives glucose and oxygen. And don't forget, this oxygen is gotten from water. All right, so balancing this equation now, you don't just leave it this way. Okay, so we have how many carbon? We have 6 carbon, and you have just 1 carbon here, so you need to balance it, making 6 here. And then you have how many hydrogen? You have 12 hydrogen, so you need to balance it up. There is 2 hydrogen here, so putting 6 here, 2 times 6, that's 12. So you have 12 hydrogen, which is balanced. Okay, you also have 6 oxygen here, 6 oxygen here, which is balanced. Then you have 2 oxygen here, but then you have 12 oxygen, so you need to balance it up. That makes it 6. So 2 times 6 is 12. So this is the balanced equation for photosynthesis. All right, so this reaction is gotten, this equation is gotten from both the light reaction and the dark reaction. All right, so it's gotten from both the dark reaction and the light reaction. So this is the site of the light reaction, and this is what happens during the dark reaction. All right, so you have both the dark reaction here and the light reaction and the dark reaction. All right, so if you are following me, please thumbs up, is in the chat box. So the thylakoid is this, the stroma is 2, which is this. So the dark reaction occurs in the stroma. Thank you, Emma. Emma. Okay, so the dark reaction occurs in the stroma. This is the stroma here. So if you look at this picture very well, you see that this side is darker than this side. So this is to tell you that this side is the dark reaction and this side is the light reaction. All right, so having your dark reaction here, what happens at the dark reaction? What happens at the dark reaction? What are the things given off? As you can see here, when there is light, when during the light reaction, when the light comes to the thylakoid membrane, it breaks down the H2O, and what happens? Don't forget, it tries to convert the light energy that it gathers during the day. So it converts it to what we call chemical energy, so that the dark reaction can make use of that chemical energy that has been gotten from the light reaction. I really want you to understand this. Okay, let me come again. So during the day, the plants try to gather up energy from the light energy. All right. So when they gather up that energy from light energy, they convert it to chemical energy so that the plants can have energy to perform their own work, their own activities during the night when there is no light. So when there is light during the day, it breaks down this water molecule. and there is something we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and also there is something we call NADPH. This is nicotinamide. This is nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide phosphates. That is the full meaning of NADPH. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So this ATP and NADPH is produced during the light reaction. This is the chemical energy produced during the light reaction, so that the dark reaction can have energy to perform their own activities during the dark stage. So the dark reaction is also known as the Calvin cycle, as you can see here, Calvin cycle. All right. So the ATP and NADPH made from the light reaction, they make use of it during the dark reaction in order to provide the CO2, in order to work with the CO2 so that glucose can be produced. All right, so that glucose can be produced. And once again, what I said is that during the light stage, during the light reaction, there is sunlight. So the sunlight comes to shine um to the thylakoid membrane in the chloroplast. All this reaction occurs in the chloroplast. As you can see the structure, this is the structure of the chloroplast. All right, so inside the chloroplast, you have the thylakoid membrane and you have the stroma. So the light reaction occurs at the thylakoid membrane, while the dark reaction occurs in the stroma. All right, so this is the stroma and this is the thylakoid membrane. You can see thylakoid here. This is thylakoid. So when it occurs, it breaks down the water molecule in the organs, in the system. It breaks down the water molecule. So when it breaks down this water molecule, that is the light, in the presence of light, so it converts the light energy. Don't forget, the energy that is being gotten from the sun is light energy. So light energy is then converted to what we call chemical energy, so that the dark reaction can get energy to perform their own activities during the night. So the chemical energy produced by the light reaction is ATP and NADPH, which is adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. All right, so when this is produced, then it try to, the reaction continues, but then it is the production of this that arrive at sugar, and this sugar is the glucose produced here. Don't forget, I said the carbon dioxide and water works together, they come together to produce glucose during photosynthesis. So glucose and oxygen is produced during photosynthesis. Take note of that. Glucose and oxygen are produced during photosynthesis. I hope we understand. I hope we are getting it. Okay, so that is what we call photosynthesis. So this is just to tell you that the plants manufacture their own food by themselves. All right, they don't depend on any other organisms. They manufacture their food by themselves. So I am going to be showing us the difference between the light reaction and the dark reaction. Between the light reaction and the dark reaction. I'm going to be showing us the table now. Okay, so this table shows us the difference between the dark reaction and the light reaction. So you can check this very well. looking at this, you can see the light reaction and the dark reaction. You can see the light reaction and the dark reaction. So we have what we call requirement for light here. The dark reaction requires light, while the light reaction requires light, while the dark reaction does not require light. So it does not require direct sunlight, like I explained earlier. So also the function is that it converts light energy. That is the light reaction. Don't forget, this is light reaction, and you have dark reaction here. That is the table. Dark reaction. Okay, so during the light reaction, the light converts, there's conversion of light energy into chemical energy, just like I explained earlier, that ATP and NADP is formed. NADPH is formed and ATP is formed. So which is adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So those are the chemical energy produced during light reaction, as you can see here. Then also for the dark reaction, they now make use of the ATP and NADPH produced by the light reaction. Like I explained, that the chemical energy gathered, that is from the light energy, I said the light reaction converts the light energy into chemical energy, so that the plants can make use of they can make use of energy, they can have energy to perform their activities at night. All right, so the plants they make use of the ATP and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. They convert that to carbon dioxide into glucose. All right, because that is what we call carbon fixation. All right, so they try to work together with the carbon dioxide and at the end, so that glucose can be produced. So glucose and oxygen is given off during photosynthesis. So you can see the key reactants here, which are the light energy. Yes, that is the light energy. The light reaction makes use of the light energy. They make use of water, that is they break down water to give oxygen. Also, they make use of the ADP. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. That is ADP. So they make use of that. Okay, so and the dark reaction, carbon dioxide is also used, ATP and NADP. So those are the key reactants that is being used during the dark reaction. And also we have the key product, that is oxygen from splitting of water, just like I wrote the equation that oxygen is given off during the light reaction. And then during the dark reaction, no oxygen is produced. So it is only the light reaction. Remember the diagram I showed you. So it is during the light reaction that the water molecules will break down and the oxygen will be given off. Okay, so oxygen is given off from the splitting of water during the light reaction. All right, so process involved. What is the process involved? So we see the photolysis of water, ATP synthesis, and electron transport. All right, so photolysis means breaking down. So photolysis of water is the same thing as breaking down water molecules. Okay, breaking down water molecules. Breaking down water molecules. So we also have what we call the carbon fixation, just like I explained, when the ATP and NADPH come together with the carbon dioxide, that's what we call carbon fixation. All right, so also the examples of reactions, water is split, just like I explained. And for the dark reaction, you can see glucose is produced. Glucose is produced. So this is the difference between the light reaction and the dark reaction. All right, so if you have any question, you can ask using the chat box. If you have any question, you can ask using the chat box. Okay, so we move to what we want to look at the necessity of light. So why is light necessary during photosynthesis? Why is light necessary during photosynthesis? Why is light necessary? Just like I explained earlier, that light is necessary because it gives energy. All right. So the plant gets their energy from the light reaction. That is why light is very necessary. So it helps to split the water. It is when the light comes in contact with the plant during the day, that is when there is breaking down of water molecules, which is what we call photolysis. Okay, so there's photolysis of water. There's photolysis of water during the light reaction. So that's one of the importance of light. Okay, necessity of light. Also, the carbon dioxide. Why is it necessary? I told you and explained earlier that carbon dioxide work with ATP and NADPH to produce glucose. All right, to form glucose. So don't forget, glucose is produced at the dark stage, at the dark reaction. So one of the importance or necessity of carbon dioxide is that it produces glucose. All right, it produces glucose. Okay, so also the chlorophyll. Why is chlorophyll needed? Don't forget, chlorophyll is the green pigment in plants, and the chlorophyll is found inside the chloroplast. The chlorophyll is found inside the chloroplast. Don't forget. So why is the chlorophyll needed? So if the chlorophyll is inside or located inside the chloroplast, then that means it is both the pigment, the thylakoid membrane, and the stroma that works together to perform photosynthesis, because it is the green pigment. So it traps the energy. It is the chlorophyll that traps energy, the light energy, and converts it to chemical energy. Don't forget, I explained earlier that the at the light reaction, the light energy is converted into chemical energy. Okay, so if the light energy is converted into chemical energy, of course, it is something that is behind it. It is something that is responsible for it. So what is responsible for it is the chlorophyll. Okay, it is the chlorophyll that is responsible for that. Okay, so we move to what we call how to detect the presence of starch. There is something we call, you know, how can we know if a plant is photosynthesizing? Because it is a plant that experience photosynthesis that will give out starch. All right, so a plant or a leaf on a plant that photosynthesizes well is the one that experiences, is the one that gives starch. So how can we know that a plant is photosynthesizing? What is the practical way that we can use to detect the presence of starch in a leaf? All right, so don't forget, like I always say, that whatever we take you here is according to the syllabus. All right, so whatever we take you here is according to the syllabus. Okay, so how do we detect the presence of starch? How do we detect the presence of starch? How do we detect the presence of starch in a leaf? In a leaf. Okay. So number one, you can make use of, I'm going to show us a diagram now. I'm going to show us something for us to see how we can test how we can test a starch, how we can test a leaf for the presence of starch. As you can see on the bird. Okay, so look at this leaf. So how can we detect if a leaf has starch? Number one, you make use of iodine solution. There's something we call iodine solution. Iodine solution. All right, so what you can do is that first thing, you don't have to detach the leaf from the plant. You don't have to detach the leaf from the plant. As you can see here, you can see leaves still attached to plant. So you don't need to detach it because you want to be sure, you want to detect, you want to know if the plant is photosynthesizing. You want to know if the plant has starch. You want to detect the presence of starch in the leaf. So you are not going to detach the leaf from the plant. So what you're going to do is that you cover a part of the leaf. Like you can see, this is aluminum foil. This is aluminum foil. Use it to cover a part of the leaf. Some can use, let's say, black paper. Some can make use of black paper. You can just do it. It's something you can do by yourself. All right. So some make use of black paper to cover some parts, just like it is done in this picture. So when it is done like this, so this part you try to attach iodine solution. All right, that is, you attach it to iodine solution and then you expose the rest to light. What do I mean by this? This part that you are seeing here, attach it to, expose it to iodine solution. So when you expose it to iodine solution and leave it for hours, with time you will see that this part this part turns blue black. So when it turns blue black, it shows the presence of starch. Shows the presence of starch. Okay, so that is how to test if a leaf has the presence of starch or not. So this other part that you covered that does not experience photosynthesis for hours, it will be brown. And that is an evidence that this has not been photosynthesizing. It is a plant that photosynthesizes that can have starch. So I hope you understand and you are getting what I am saying. So what I mean by this practical is to detect the presence of starch in a plant or in a leaf rather. So that is the essence of this practical that I am trying to explain. So you can also try it probably at your own pace. You can try it. So just to understand better how to detect starch or how to detect the presence of starch in a leaf. Okay, so this can come out in your question in any way. All right. So then there is something we call the macro and micronutrients. The macro and micronutrients. The macro and micronutrient. So all these plants that you are seeing here, they also have what we call macro and micronutrients. So they also have what we call macro and micronutrients. What do we mean by macro and micronutrients? From the word macro and macro means something that is big, while micro means something that is in minute condition, minute proportion. All right. So minute proportion. Okay. So we are going to be doing this in the next class, the macro and micronutrient. That is what we'll be doing in the next class because of our time, because I want us to check some questions. So the next class we are going to be treating macro and micro elements. Okay. So that will be by next class. So today we have talked about the nutrition. We talked about the different types of nutrition. We talked about the definition of nutrition, modes of nutrition, which are the autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition. We talked about the examples. I gave you examples of the autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition. We talked about types of heterotrophic nutrition, which are the Holozoic nutrition. Example, the sheep and man, that is animals. Most animals, they belong to Holozoic because they feed on strong food, organic substance. So that is Holozoic nutrition. Then we talked about the saprophytic nutrition, the parasitic nutrition. We talked about the carnivorous plants. All right. So we talked about the plant nutrition, whereby we looked into the photosynthesis, the chemosynthesis. We talked about the light and dark reaction of photosynthesis. We talked about what they are giving off, the equation of photosynthesis, which is the CO2 plus H2O equals the glucose, which is 6 C6H12O6 plus oxygen. And we balanced it up. Don't forget, we balanced it up. Okay, so this is the equation of photosynthesis. This is glucose, and this is what this is oxygen. Oxygen is giving off. Okay, and the oxygen is gotten from where? From the water. Don't forget. All right, so we talked about the light reaction, the dark reaction, where it occurs in the chloroplast. All right, so I'm going to be giving us some questions to I'm going to be giving us some questions now so that we can see how we understand the parts. All right. Okay. So this is I think we are out of time already. We are out of time already. So what we are going to do is that since we are here to finish the whole topic, we are going to be ending the topic in our next class with the macro and micronutrients. Don't forget. So after the class, then we would treat the questions together so that we can include the subtopic too. So that we can include the questions under the subtopic um and treat them together. So, but pending the time that we'll meet in the next class, I would like you to go through our past questions on the app, go through our past questions on the app, treat the questions under this topic so that you can understand how UTME asks questions under this topic. Then we have past questions for different year. All right. So you can treat as many questions as possible under this topic. And if you have any question that you don't understand, you can pile it up and ask in our next class. All right. So during the next class, if you have any question, just drop it using the chat box, and then we are going to be treating it together. All right. Then with the past questions also, in our next class, we'll be doing that. Okay. So thank you for joining the class today. And like I said earlier, go and treat past questions under this topic. Go and read further under this topic and try to recap everything that we just discussed so that you can have full understanding of the topic. So we'll be meeting in our next class. And like I used to say, do not miss any of our classes, because if you miss any, you may not be able to, to grab or meet up with everything that will be said. You may not be able to meet up. Like those that did not attend today's class now, if they joined in the next class, of course, there is no way they can have the full grip of what we have been discussing. So always try your possible best to attend all classes. So thank you very much. Have a nice night. Bye.